The first rule of the Concord Arena was simple. Humans were not allowed to fight. The second rule was even simpler. If a challenge was issued under the eye of the Triarch, it could not be refused. Those two rules collided the moment General Calith of the Vrax Dominion pointed her bladed finger at me and laughed. I still remember the sound of it echoing through the grand amphitheater of Aurelian Prime. A sharp, chittering laugh, layered with ultrasonic harmonics that made half the alien delegates flinch. Tens of thousands of beings filled the terraces, representing over 300 starfaring species. Gravity fields overlapped. Atmospheres blended in careful domes. Ancient banners of conquest and diplomacy floated in holographic splendor above us. And in the center of it all stood me, Lieutenant Commander Elias Ward.
Human.
Diplomatic attaché. Technically unarmed. I challenged the human to ritual combat, Calith declared, her voice amplified by the Triarch's spires. Let him prove whether his species deserves a seat among warriors or crawl back to the shadows where prey belongs. The arena fell into stunned silence. Humans had only joined the Galactic Concord 8 years earlier. We were newcomers, classified as adaptive omnivores with dangerous persistence traits. Useful, clever, but physically unimpressive by galactic standards. No exoskeletons. No plasma glands. No natural weapons beyond fragile bone and soft tissue. The Concord had made it very clear. Humans were diplomats, engineers, and problem solvers, not fighters. Calith knew that. She also knew the second rule. The Triarch's central eye flared, bathing the arena in golden light. Challenge recognized, the ancient construct intoned. By Concord law, refusal constitutes admission of inferiority. Combat parameters will be established. Every ambassador turned toward me. Some looked amused, others horrified, a few curious. I felt my pulse slow instead of spike. Training, maybe. Or the strange calm that comes when you realize running is no longer an option. Calith's mandibles spread in a predator's grin. You may surrender now, human, she said, her voice dripping with mock mercy. I will make your death quick. I smiled back. I don't think you understand, I said quietly. You didn't challenge a human warrior. She tilted her head. Then what did I challenge? I met her gaze. You challenged a human who knows the rules. The beginning of the mistake. The Vrax Dominion had never lost a ritual combat in recorded Concord history. Their species evolved on a supergravity world. Dense muscle fibers. Reinforced skeletal lattices. Neural clusters optimized for predictive combat analysis. Their generals were living weapons, trained from hatching in ritualized violence. Calith was legendary even among them. 12 victories. No fatality suffered. She wore her scars like medals, each etched with phosphorescent dye. The arena floor shifted, reconfiguring into a standard combat field. Hardlight pylons rose, marking boundaries. The Triarch's voice echoed again. Combat parameters. Non-projectile weapons permitted. Lethal force authorized. Victory by incapacitation or death. A low murmur rippled through the crowd. Non-projectile. Calith flexed her arms, blades extending from her forelimbs with a wet, metallic hiss. Each one could shear starship armor. I, on the other hand, was offered a selection. Energy spear. Vibroblade. Shock staff. Gravitic hammer. I waved them away. I'll fight unarmed. The murmur became an uproar. Calith froze, then laughed again. You insult me. No, I replied. I'm respecting the rules. She stalked toward the center circle. You will die screaming. Probably, I said. But not the way you think. What no one in that arena understood was that humans had been studying ritual combat across the Concord since the day we made first contact. Not because we wanted to fight, because we knew one day someone would force us to, and because humans are very, very good at finding loopholes. The middle where everything changed. The signal sounded. Kalith moved first. She crossed the arena in a blink, her mass defying inertia. One blade swept toward my neck, fast enough to decapitate a Korthan warbeast. I stepped into the strike. Gasps erupted. The blade skimmed past my cheek, close enough for me to feel the ionized air burn my skin. I grabbed her forearm with both hands, twisted, and dropped my weight. Kalith stumbled. Just for a fraction of a second. That was all I needed. I slammed my shoulder into her center of mass and redirected her momentum. She crashed into the arena floor hard enough to crack the hard light surface. The silence was absolute. Vrak's warriors were not supposed to fall. Kalith roared and surged up, slashing wildly. I retreated, letting her burn energy. Each missed strike carved trenches in the floor. You run, she snarled. I adapt, I corrected. Her species fought to dominate. Humans fought to end fights. When she overextended again, I caught her wrist and applied torque at an angle no Vrak's anatomy expected. There was a sharp crack as one of her secondary joints dislocated. Kalith screamed. Not in pain. In disbelief. I didn't let up. I swept her legs, slammed her down again, and pinned her with my knee on her thorax. The arena exploded with noise. Impossible. Illegal technique. Humans are not built for this. The Triarcha's eye flared brighter. Combat remains within parameters. Kalith thrashed, her strength monstrous, even injured. One blade grazed my side, slicing through my uniform and drawing blood. Pain flared, hot and sharp. I welcomed it. Pain focused me. I leaned close enough for her to hear me over the roar. Here's the rule you forgot, I said. Humans don't fight fair. We fight smart. I shifted my grip, exploiting the micro gap in her armor plating. My fingers dug into a nerve cluster evolution had never intended to be pressed. Her body locked up. Total neuromuscular overload. Kalith went rigid, then collapsed, twitching uncontrollably. I rolled away and stood, breathing hard, blood dripping from my side. The Triarch was silent for several long seconds. Then, victory condition met. Combatant Kalith incapacitated. Human combatant victorious. The amphitheater erupted into chaos. The aftermath nobody expected medical drones descended immediately, stabilizing Kalith and sealing my wound. As I stood there, surrounded by stunned aliens, I realized something important. This wasn't just a victory. It was a precedent. Kalith survived. Barely. When she regained consciousness hours later, she demanded to see me. They brought her to the diplomatic wing, her massive frame supported by anti-grav fields. You broke our rules, she said, her voice quieter now. No, I replied. I followed them exactly. She studied me for a long time. You could have killed me. Yes. Why didn't you? I shrugged. Because then your people would come looking for revenge. This way, they come looking for answers. That was the moment the Vrak's dominion changed. Within months, they requested human advisors for their warrior academies. Not to learn strength or speed. To learn restraint. To learn adaptation. To learn how to end conflicts without annihilation. The Concord revised its combat classifications. Humans were no longer listed as non-combatant species. We were reclassified as something new. Strategic apex. The ending that echoed across the stars years later. I stood in the same amphitheater, older now, my hair streaked with gray. Beside me stood Kalith, her scars healed, her posture respectful. A new species stood in the center of the arena, issuing challenges, roaring about superiority. Kalith glanced at me. "Shall I handle this?" she asked. I smiled. "Let me," I said. I helped write the new rules. The challenger laughed when I stepped forward. Until the Triarchas, I turned toward them and spoke words that would ripple across the galaxy. Combatant designation, human. Advisory. Underestimation statistically correlated with catastrophic failure. I cracked my knuckles and took my place on the arena floor. Humanity had never sought dominance among the stars. But when challenged, we reminded the galaxy why we survived long enough to reach them, and why breaking the rules sometimes meant teaching the universe a better way. The Challenger's species called themselves the Karuan Ascendancy. They were tall, faceted beings of crystal and muscle, born from a high-radiation star system where survival meant domination or extinction. Their arrival in the Concord followed the familiar pattern: disdain for diplomacy, obsession with strength, and an open declaration that hierarchy should be decided by combat alone. They had watched the recordings of my fight with Kalith, and like so many before them, they believed they had understood it. They were wrong. The Karuan champion stepped into the arena, crystalline plates shifting with a sound like grinding stone. He carried a gravitic cleaver, its edge bending light. The weapon alone weighed more than my entire body mass. "You are smaller than the recordings suggest," he said, voice echoing through harmonic resonators embedded in his chest. I expected more from the species that humiliated the Vrax. Kalith's mandibles tightened, but she remained silent. I stepped forward, feeling the familiar hum of the arena beneath my boots. The same circle, the same rules, but not the same galaxy. "You're not here to fight me," I said calmly. "You're here to prove something to yourselves." The Karuan laughed, a sound like shattering glass. "We will prove that fear created your reputation, not strength." The Triarchas I ignited. Challenge acknowledged. Parameters unchanged. Commence combat. The signal sounded. The Karuan champion charged, every step cracking the arena floor. His cleaver came down in a vertical arc meant to end the fight instantly. I didn't dodge. I moved aside by centimeters, letting the weapon bury itself in the floor. Before he could recover, I placed my palm against the exposed joint between his plates and activated the only piece of technology one carried. A simple neural pulse emitter. Non-lethal. Concord approved. Entirely legal. The pulse surged into his body, scrambling equilibrium, vision, and spatial awareness all at once. He staggered, roaring in confusion, swinging blindly. I didn't strike him again. I backed away. The crowd murmured, confused. The Karuan fell to one knee, then both, weapon clattering uselessly to the ground. "Why do you retreat?" he demanded, struggling to rise. "Because the fight is already over," I replied. The Triarch paused, ancient processors recalculating. Clarification required. "Combatant remains alive." "Yes," I said, and incapable of continuing. The Karuan tried to stand again. Failed. His balance centers were completely disrupted. He was undefeated in battle and helpless, without a single bone broken. The Triarchas I dimmed, then flared. Victory condition met. Human combatant victorious. Silence swept the amphitheater. Not shock this time. Understanding. I turned to face the assembled delegates, my voice carrying without amplification. "This is the rule humanity breaks," I said. "The idea that victory requires destruction. We learned a long time ago that survival isn't about being the strongest in the room. It's about knowing when strength is unnecessary." The Karuan were escorted away, their champion alive, shamed, but learning. Later, in the quiet halls beyond the arena, Kalith walked beside me. You could have ended him, she said. Easily. Yes. You chose not to again. I nodded. Because the galaxy doesn't need more winners. It needs fewer wars. She stopped and faced me fully. Your species terrifies the Concord. I smiled faintly. Good. Fear makes people careful. No, she corrected. Not fear of your strength. Fear of your restraint. Years passed. No species challenged humans to ritual combat again. Instead, they invited us to mediate their wars, to redesign their training doctrines, to rewrite their rules of engagement. The Concord expanded, not through conquest, but through stabilization. Border wars declined. Extinction-level conflicts vanished. And whenever a young species asked why humans were classified as strategic apex, the answer was always the same. Because when humanity fights, it does not fight to dominate. It fights to make sure no one else has to. And that, more than any weapon or armor, is what changed the galaxy forever.